are you from?
Hey, Leo.
Hi. Hey.
Hey.
I'm from originally from San Jose, California. My question is, the 2012 budget plan proposed by Paul Ryan has been praised by many in the media as bold or brave. Do you see this as a time that calls for boldness? And do you think that the plan you outlined last week demonstrates sufficient boldness, or is this just a media creation?
You know, it's a great question. Look, here's what I'd say. The Republican budget that was put forward, I would say, is fairly radical. I wouldn't call it particularly courageous. I do think Mr. Ryan is sincere. I think he's a patriot. I think he wants to solve a real problem, which is our long-term deficit. But I think that what he and the other Republicans in the House of Representatives also want to do is change our social compact in a pretty fundamental way. Their basic view is that no matter how successful I am, no matter how much I've taken from this country, you know, I wasn't born wealthy. You know, I was raised by a single mom and my grandparents. I went to college on scholarships. There was a time when my mom was trying to get her PhD where for a short time she had to take food stamps. My grandparents relied on Medicare and Social Security to help supplement their income when they got old. So their notion is, despite the fact that I've benefited from all of these investments, my grandfather benefited from the GI Bill after he fought in World War II, that somehow I now have no obligation to people who are less fortunate than me, and I have no real obligation to future generations to make investments so that they have a better future.
Okay, that's a clip, and this was in front of a young crowd. David, this goes deeper than politics. Politics, unfortunately, is in the middle of this, but this cuts deeper than politics. We're looking at a situation that you were talking about silver, price of silver when you came in. We're looking at a situation that I think a lot of people believe is one of the direst emergencies we've ever had in this country. Not just with the economy, but about anything that has the fabric in this country. When we start throwing things out about he said, she said, we're missing the point, aren't we? When we start throwing things out about you're looking to take away, you're looking to, children are going to die, the elderly are going to be kicked to the streets, we're missing the point, aren't we?
Totally. You know, listening to him accuse Mr. Ryan of attempting to change the social compact would suggest to me that Barack Obama is completely oblivious to the principles this nation was founded on, or is founded on. It's him that is actually projecting onto Mr. Ryan the very thing that he's attempting to do, which is to change the nature of the government to a benefactor, which is never what the intention of America's founding fathers were. The government in America was never intended to be the benefactor. It was never intended to be the provider. It was never intended to be the mommy. You know, I did 4 years in the Coast Guard. And the reason I got out, among many reasons actually, but one of the primary reasons was excuse me, my dad was in the military. Excuse me. My dad was in the military. He was a colonel in the Air Force. I was a military brat. Been accused of that all my life. And so we, every 4 years, would move. My dad grew up dependent on the Air Force, and right now he's enjoying a nice pension. And when I did my 4 years in the service, I got out because I, first of all, felt that I needed to do that time. It was a post-Vietnam service, but because of my love for this country and what I knew that the men in Vietnam had done, that I felt the need to go in and serve. So I did. But after 4 years, I decided that I didn't want to be relying on the government for my livelihood. I didn't want to be taken care of the rest of my life. I I did a little college and ended up going back to work for the Air Force for about 3.5 years as a contractor. And I got into the same mentality again. I thought, whoa, wait a minute. I saw the abuse, I saw the corruption, I saw the graft, I saw the politicking inside that civil service, and I decided I don't want this either. I wanted to be separate. That's what prompted me to get out and go into business for myself. I began to understand that there's a mentality inside the government that when you're inside that, you're taken care of. Everyone thought I was an idiot to leave these cushy jobs, these government jobs where they would take care of me. Obama, now reflecting on his past, and talking about how wonderful it was that he was provided all this sustenance and subsidies that helped him get raised up. Now he wants to return back to the people the very thing that enabled him to enjoy the prosperity all the way up to President of the United States that he enjoys. He doesn't get it. There's a man in the office of president that doesn't understand what America's founded on. This is a dangerous man. The principles that he's talking about are socialism. Now, we've become accustomed to socialism because we've gotten used to Social Security. Franklin Delano Roosevelt introduced a Social Security system. And so we have become an entitlement-minded society. So this is why he's able to get away with this conversation right now without people becoming outraged, because we've all bought into it to one degree or another. But now he's attempting to rewrite the social compact by suggesting that he needs now to give back. What Mr. Ryan is all about is trying to radically in the context of going back to the roots, balance the budget. That's a radical idea. It's a radical idea to work work within your means. If I tried to run a business like they're running the government, I'd be out of business. You can't run a business in the red. And so anyone that would suggest that you can is out of their mind. And I'd say Barack Obama is out of his mind. And so are all the people that believe that the government should take care of us. They're out of their mind. The problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And we're quickly approaching that place where there will be no more money to tax the people. And eventually, when the leech sucks all of the blood out of its host, it dies too. The government today, and Barack Obama now leading the charge, has become a leech, and it's a blood-sucking leech, and it's sucking all the vitality out of all of the people in this country, so as to sustain the illusion that it's a benefactor, that it is somehow responsible for taking care of us. This is not the American mindset. This is not what America is founded on.
But the American mindset, I believe, is that you do help your neighbors, and you do pitch in when given the opportunity to help your neighbors. So this is what they're playing on, though.
Yes.
This is exactly how they're playing this. This is how you help your neighbors.
So the government's become the church. The government has circumvented the role in the church. Is it because the church has abdicated its role to be charitable? So the government now, because nature abhors a vacuum, the government's going to come in now and be the charitable thing that the church is supposed to be, but stop being? Because that's what it looks like to me. The government was never intended in this country to be the church. And now the government wants our total allegiance. It wants all of our money so that it can take care of the needy and the poor. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take care of the needy and the poor, but let me make that my choice. That's my charity. I get to choose what to do with my money. And if we go back to the gospel and the principles of the gospel, there's nothing wrong with having money. And there's nothing wrong with charity. But there is something wrong about a government that uses extortion and fraud and guns and jails to persuade the people to voluntarily capitulate so that the government itself can then become the god of our country and take care of the poor. You know what? This is an abuse of power. This is one of those things. This is usurpation and abuse that I keep talking about, that the founding fathers referred to in the Declaration of Independence, when a long train of abuses and usurpations. Now, abuse of power is taking the power that you have and abusing it for purposes that you don't, that is not intended for you. And a usurpation is a flat out going beyond the scope of your power and stepping into a venue that is not yours. And so when the government steps into the role of the church and starts playing the church, this is a very dangerous thing.